Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I want to share with you guys 10 more famous EDC folding knives that I think everybody should try at least once. So I did another list a while back and it included 20 knives, and that was a really popular video. A lot of you guys liked it. The problem was a lot of the knives on that list were really expensive. So I wanted to include 10 more that I legitimately think people should try if they never have. But a lot of these are going to be substantially less expensive, save for a few. Now, not everything on this list is made for everybody. It's not even going to be something that everybody likes, but they are very popular. And for a lot of people, these are like their ultimate pocket knives. These are knives that have been carried and used by so many people over the years, and they have, risen to the top of certain people's EDC priority list for good reason. So I'm going to be fair and tell you exactly what I like and what I don't like and what I think some people might really enjoy about each model. Also, each of these should be available, so I'll link them right down in the description. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Starting off here with number 10, an obvious one, we have got to talk about the Spyderco Delica. Probably, for a lot of people, this is the first Spyderco knife that they see, and the first thought in most people's heads is, what an ugly knife. Spyderco knives, they start to look them up. Oh my gosh, Spyderco knives are so ridiculously ugly, and I've talked about this so many times. All of us, and well, I'd say about 99.9% of us start off looking at Spyderco knives and thinking, no way, I'm never going to put one of those in my pocket. They look absolutely insane. They look like a dying bird. That's always kind of how I thought of it. And then you realize after handling and using, especially certain models, how specifically made for, like the user experience. The performance of the blade, they tend to be, very thin, flat ground blades in a variety of shapes. But the blade is meant to be able to be deployed easily and conveniently. That hole there, this is more of like a Spyderco PM2 blade, right? They use a wide variety of different blade shapes, but all of them tend to be very easy to manipulate, and they all tend to be very thin behind the edge. And you find out really quickly, as much as I love big burly knives, I find out really quickly that a lot of these knives that are smaller and more compact and thin, they tend to just perform as a knife better for the average Joe. If you're, somebody who needs a knife for a more specialized task, maybe you need something different. But this is something that I learned from watching a lot of Nick Shabazz reviews, because he loves the Spyderco Delica. But he loves it, and I always thought, I don't like that knife. But my wife ended up getting me one of these for an anniversary gift, and I have very much grown to like this one specifically. It's got the titanium scales in Damascus. They range anywhere from about $80 in VG10 all the way up to $250, $260 if you want something a little bit more exotic. But carrying this knife, and yes, I did switch out the pocket clip, carrying this knife and using it, I've realized exactly what Nick was talking about. It might not be the prettiest thing in the world, and you might not like the injection mold plastic scales that it comes with. I certainly don't. But one thing is for sure, it is a very good EDC knife. It absolutely does exactly what you want it to do. And honestly, even the base VG10 models, VG10 is not like the newest, craziest super steel by a landslide, but it is a pretty good steel. I mean, it will do what the average Joe wants it to do. It's going to be easy to touch up. It's going to be stainless. It's going to be relatively tough, right? I think honestly, and these are made in Seki City, Japan, by the way. Honestly, this is a knife that, a lot of people might look at and think, that's not for me, and then carry and use it and realize this is absolutely for me. This is my ideal pocket knife, and I absolutely love it. In my case, it was just a matter of getting a specific variation of it. Right, a little bit snobby, wanted to do something a little bit fancy. So it took this version to get me to understand that and switching the clip exactly what I liked about it. And it is a knife that I think everybody should kind of discover for themselves. Moving on here to number 9. This is a big one, the Cold Steel Code 4. Much like the Spyderco Delica, it is, the lock is operational on the back. We didn't talk about this with the Delica, but something that I like about this is that the locking system is ambidextrous and the pocket clip is ambidextrous. Ambidextrous. I couldn't even imagine. You tell me what you think that made up word could possibly mean. But anyways, the Cold Steel Code 4 is a great example of a cold steel knife that utilizes the triad lock that is not a hyper crazy, super thick, kind of hard to carry knife. The Code 4 actually is pretty thin and lightweight, but it is built super duper well. So if you're looking at something like the Delica and thinking, it even sounds delicate, right? Oh, I'm slowly turning into Nick Shabazz. Yeah, it does. It seems like I just want something a little bit bigger. Like, I get it. This might be the answer for you. This is definitely a work folding knife. This is a hardcore, heavy-duty working folding knife that's got pretty good cutting geometry. By the way, steel is S35VN and comes in either drop point or tanto, so you can choose. And they also should come with the left-handed pocket clip. You can see here this one curves. You don't have to flip that one over and have it curving the wrong way for the right hand. It should curve correctly for the left hand. But not going to be heavy on fidget factor or anything like that. But for those looking for a good premium cutting tool, this is made in Taiwan, by the way. This will do it, and at the same time, it will hold up. The triad locking system obviously is one of, if not the strongest folding knife locks on the market. So if you're looking for something that is compact and actually practical and heavy duty for $119 roughly, and by the way, sometimes you can get these for less on Amazon. It's a little bit of a dice roll. Sometimes you get a good one. Sometimes you get one that's obviously a factory second, right? But $119 from a retailer like Blade HQ. And I think a lot of people might find, once again, their ultimate pocket knife in the Code 4. Definitely one you should try. Moving on here to number 8. This is a personal one for me because it was the knife that literally started, technically, my entire channel. This is the Kershaw Blur. It is the only assisted knife on this list. I started out with assisted knives. I thought they were so cool, being able to push that button. Oh, it springs out by itself, right? Closest thing to a switchblade that I had ever handled. Nowadays, you don't really need an assisted knife because a properly tuned detent with whatever locking system can easily be deployed by, clicking or flicking your thumb out in a certain direction or this finger back here, and it's fine. But for some people who just really haven't developed that or kind of maybe you just like the assisted feature, that's going to be really beneficial. I got lucky with my first nice pocket knife. I saw this in a Walmart display and I thought, that looks cool. Black, tanto serrated. That clearly must be the ultimate pocket knife because reasons, right? I feel like most of us kind of started there. These are made in the USA. Not all Kershaws are, but these are made in the USA, and they come standard with 14C28N steel, which a lot of people would argue is one of the very best blade steels that you can get under $100. And then you have the aluminum frame, and you have the little, sort of textured inlays here. Tip up, tip down, right hand only, unless they have changed that. This is actually an older model in S30V. But despite this being a recurve, which is not my favorite blade shape, the Kershaw Blur is actually a wonderful, wonderful, straightforward EDC knife. And again, made in the USA, which is great. And you don't see a lot of really nice USA-made knives outside of what Kershaw does at this price point. The standard price of the Blur, while it has gone up, not too crazy since the first time I bought mine. These are starting at $84 now and go all the way up to $140 if you want to pick it up in Magna Cut, which again, for a USA-made knife, is really not bad. Even people who turn their nose up at assisted knives might find that they really like the Blur. I am so thankful for this existing at that exact moment that I probably would have seen it at any day at Walmart. I think it's still in there, but I'm so thankful that I decided, you know what? I'm going to buy, at the time, a $54 pocket knife, and it ended up being one of my favorites ever. It ended up being the whole reason that I started getting super duper interested in pocket knives. This is a wonderful knife. This is the knife that my wife carries, by the way, which is why this is mounted for tip down. That's just the way that she likes to carry it. Yeah, definitely one that I would suggest that you check out. Moving on here to number 7, we're going to include 2 knives. We have to. People were mad at me that I didn't include these knives on the last list. The Ontario Rat 1 and 2. Over the I would say a few years ago, maybe 5 or so years ago, these were considered some of, if not the very best budget EDC folding knives on the market. I would disagree nowadays and say that there are lots and lots of other options. However, I think these are still knives that pretty much everybody should try for themselves. These operate on a combination of nylon and phosphor bronze. So you get pretty good, like smoother action than you would expect from like phosphor bronze, but at the same time, plenty durable. They'll keep most of the debris out of the pivot. Fully flat ground blades. They come in either AUS 8 or D2. I'm not sure of the quality of their heat treat. I've heard a lot of people say that there's not really a whole lot of difference between their AUS 8 and D2, so keep that in mind, if you're looking to save a buck. The D2 versions of the Rat 2 are going to be anywhere from about $55 to $104 if you want to go up to S35VN. And then your Rat 1, the bigger guy, is going to range anywhere from $60 for D2 all the way up to $109 for S35EN. Again, a little bit less if you're going to go with the AUS 8. But in my experience, I have one of these down here, which has been heavily loved, and I also keep one in my truck. It is just one of the most straightforward utilitarian cutting tools. There's nothing special about it. I don't get this thing out and ooh and ah, over it anymore. But I know it's just a basic, dependable pocket knife. It's that perfect, keep it in the tray of your truck knife, or keep it in the junk, or whatever, right? Or EDC it, right? Make it your permanent EDC. Tip up, tip down, right or left hand carry only. A pretty darn good, reliable liner lock. Liner locks are not always the most reliable locking systems, but the Ontario Rats have, like traditionally, as far as like all the YouTube testing goes, in my experience, they've held up just fine. And in a lot of, heavier, crazier, not really crazy, but heavier, realistic tests with these locking systems, they have held up. One of my favorite things about this knife is how easy and comfortable it is to deploy, because they didn't put some stupid, super sharp, teeny tiny little pokey little elf's hat of a thumb stud on these knives. It's a big domed off thumb stud on both of them, even the smaller one. Super comfortable, very simple, very easy to deploy. It's got a nice consistent edge, very easy to resharpen and touch up, and the ergonomic lines are honestly really, really good. The pocket clip is a little long for me, and it, after a while cutting, cardboard or whatever you're cutting for an extended period of time, I think the pocket clip might bother you. But overall, it really is one of those knives that's made for a lot of people, and I think the two sizes are really good. This is definitely on the smaller, more compact size, and this is definitely on the larger side. So depending on who you are and how big your hands are and what your preferences are, you should be able to find a color and steel and setup that sort of meets your needs. Absolutely, still in 2025, a knife that I think pretty much everybody needs to try at least one time. Moving on here to number 6. I don't know how I ended up with so many of these. Actually, I do, because Civivi sends me stuff. But I'm going to be honest with you. The Elementum is not, by a long shot, my favorite Civivi knife. It's not. But if you sort these retail sites by most popular, what Civivi knife, like we're talking about Civivi knives, by most popular, what Civivi knife is consistently at the top? The Elementum. So even though this is not my favorite knife, I gotta be honest, even as a reviewer, right, and just trying to look at this thing objectively, I can understand why people like it. I can understand why people gravitate towards it. I'm just a bit of a snob, and the Elementum is a bit of a boring knife to me. As you can see, Civivi has tried to get me to like this thing by sending me all these different, they've probably sent me like 7 or 8 different versions, and I always end up with the same conclusion. Neat, it's kind of boring. But if we talk about what's good about this knife, what people like about it, it's that very thin hollow grind. And Civivi does a really, really great job with their factory cutting edge. These things are going to range anywhere from about $52 all the way up to $115 if you want something really fancy. They have button locks. They have liner locks. There's probably even, I think there's slip joint versions of it, right? I think some of them have thumb stud only, and some of them are flipper and thumb stud combination. The button lock ones I think are really popular just because of how fidgety and easy to use they are. But I find that the liner lock versions are going to be a bit more reliable in terms of the lock setup. Particularly, I like this Warncliffe one. I don't know if it's still available. You'll see these in a few different steels. I think, D2, 14C20N, Nitro V, maybe. It just depends on what you're looking at. But realistically, it is a lightweight, compact design that just has that classic EDC pocket knife. The knife world can be very overwhelming for new people. And sometimes newer people are like, I just want to know something straightforward, something basic that's going to slice well, that's going to last, that's not going to fall apart in my pocket. It's not going to fall apart where I'm doing basic cutting tasks. I can understand why so many people recommend the Civivi Elementum and why so many people end up absolutely loving this knife. It does work. I think it's a gateway knife. I think it's one of those knives that sort of opens doors And people buy it as like their one and done, like I just want a basic pocket knife. And then they experience something like Civivi for the first time and go, oh my gosh, this is so nice. Now I want to explore other things in their line. And by doing that, you end up finding out about, you watch YouTube reviews and you find it's probably, for a lot of you, that's a path you're on right now, right? And you end up exploring these different content creators' libraries of all these different knives. And then before you know it, you've bought like 40 knives. So just be careful, because this is definitely, the Civivi Elementum is definitely one of those knives that is super welcoming to new people. And it says, come on, I'm just a basic knife. I'm super friendly. Just try me out. I'll do everything you want me to do. But I'm going to make you want to buy more knives, right? Definitely. It's boring. It's basic. I feel like they should have these things set up to mount for both right and left hand carry. Maybe I have some older ones. I can't believe that that's not the case with these knives. But generally speaking, they are very accommodating for a lot of people and very ergonomically comfortable. Even if you wear, like I wear an XL glove, I can easily get a full grip on this knife, no problem. Both the button lock version and the liner lock version are very, very easy to manipulate, and the blade does cut really, really well. Civivi has such an amazing factory edge, such a thin grind on a lot of these. It's really, really nice. Moving on here to one of the most expensive knives on the list, number 5, we got to talk about the Bodacious. So this was, I remember the release for the Bodacious, and I remember being so disappointed. Pretty much the exact same way that I felt when they announced the Shaman. And I know that I'm mispronouncing that, but that's a 7-year joke at this point. I am intentionally doing it, right? But the Shaman, when it came out, I thought, what is this? Like they've combined, it's just like a big native, or like a PM, it's like a Manix 2 and a PM2 and a native smashed together. Like, how boring. Oh my goodness. Well, the Shaman ended up being one of my favorite pocket knives of all time. After 5,000 uploads on this channel, that Shaman managed to be one of my favorite pocket knives of all time. And it wasn't until I actually handled it. That video is still up on YouTube. The moment I unboxed it, and the moment that it clicks with me, and I got it. The Bodacious was a lot the same story, but it wasn't after I unboxed it. It was after I actually put it in my pocket and used it that I understood. It is boring. It's a very boring knife. It's like I always call it the Shaman with PS1 graphics, because it's flat. Right? They took away the forward choil, gave us more blade, gave us the choke up spot right behind the edge. They took away the heavy chamfering, so you don't have that nice rounded edge. But is it a good tool? Holy crap, it is such a good tool. Arguably, this might be their best full-size compression lock knife. Should it be $225 to $240, depending on the version you get? No, it should be about $165, but it isn't, right? Now, if you go ahead and spend the money on it, this is one of those knives that obviously it's really expensive. So if you get an opportunity to actually handle one at a store that carries Spyderco knives, definitely do that, obviously. Don't risk it, because it really is. That's a lot of money to roll the dice on just because of some guy screaming at you through a rectangle saying, it's really good, trust me. Yeah, it is, but at the same time, you should try for yourself. Cutting geometry on Spyderco knives, wonderful. Heat treat on their S30V, but S30V is such a boring steel. But try Spyderco's S30V. Try it and tell me if you've experienced a lot of different S30V blades across, the knife industry. Try Spyderco's if you never have, and tell me that there's not a difference between their general cutting geometry and their HRC. They do such a good job. Ease of access to the opening hole. This is about as Spyderco as you can get without looking quite so much like a dead bird. It's got a little more knife and a little bit less dead bird, right? So like dead vulture. It really is one of the better looking knives. The compression lock, amazing, super easy to manipulate, very, very strong, very reliable, much more reliable than, your liner locks. And it operates on phosphor bronze washers while still having mounting positions for the pocket clip, left and right-handed carry. This really is an expensive, but very, very good and very thoughtful knife design. Not something that they just slapped together. That's what it looks like. It is far from that. This is actually a joy to carry and use. Moving on here to number 4, and that's going to be the Knafs Lander. The one that I like the most, I think this is the Lander 2. It's the big one. It's also the most expensive one in S35VN. But there's also the Lander 1 and the Lander 3, and there's a bunch of different variations in between. The reason that I think that this is a knife everybody should try is because the gentleman who designed it, Ben, designed it as the ideal pocket knife for him, but he made different sizes for people who might have other preferences. They also come in a bunch of different, prices, obviously, but the base price for the Lander is going to be about $45. They go all the way to about $140, depending on the version you get. But even the basic version, the biggest benefit is, while it does look like a super basic knife, and it is a great EDC knife, whether you go with the crossbar lock or the liner lock version. The best thing about it is the ability to customize it. You can customize these knives so easily and for such little money. It's literally like the basic one is literally just a couple of screws, swap the scales off. A lot of these custom scales can be purchased on Blade HQ for $20. What draws people to the knife community, right, outside of just basic utility, is all of the different fun things that we see with pocket knives, wild and crazy builds and the colors and the materials and all that. And it's fun until you find out how expensive it is. So the Lander really solves that problem for a lot of people. Not only is the base model a generally good, functional, capable, and reliable EDC knife, easy to manipulate, it's also super cheap to customize. And at this point, there's gotta be thousands of scale options. Thousands, because of the open source nature of these scales, right? So if you are new to the knife world and you love the idea of kind of personalizing a good, inexpensive knife, the Lander's the way to go. Made well. It's got good cutting geometry. It's a good size. It's a great EDC knife. And there's a bajillion different scales that you can get. This is a special WIA version, which came with a tool set that was sent by Ben and WIA. And it's a good knife. It's a boring knife, but it was designed to be straightforward and boring. And then you get to add the personality and the fun factor with the scales. Absolutely worth checking out. Moving on here to number 3, a knife that I know you guys are sick of me talking about, but it wasn't on the last list because I didn't have it yet. This is my personal favorite EDC folding knife of all time. This is the Demko Shark Cub. Not only do you have the Shark Lock, which is the same general strength or relative strength as the Triad Lock, it's just substantially easier to manipulate with that, tab back here. The reason that I switched from the Demko 80-20.5 to this guy is because this guy is even lighter weight and more compact, has the same amount of ergonomic room, despite being shorter, because they didn't give us that little hook out on the back of the handle that drives me crazy. And the opening hole has been changed from a thin oval to sort of this oval that sort of widens out. It kind of looks like a water balloon, right, mid-throw. But it makes it a lot easier to manipulate this, whether I like to do the reverse flick or whatever. And then the other thing that I like, it's lightweight, it's thin, it's compact, right? It's ambidextrous. You got mounting positions on either side for the pocket clip. There's a wide range. Now, I don't love the price on the base version of it, which is about $90 for AUS 10A. Ew, Demko, please change that. We would love to see it in 14C28N or something else, even if there is just a marginal difference in terms of performance. I think it would make a lot of people happy. The injection mold scales, I will say on those, I don't love injection mold plastic, FRN, GRN, whatever. I don't love it, but Demko did a really good job with those because they're contoured and textured. So they feel substantially higher quality than what we would typically expect. They also feel substantially more solid than, say, the injection mold plastic that comes on the Benchmade Bug Out, which is a knife that I would not recommend at all. If you're looking at that in the same territory, I would definitely recommend the Demko the Demko Shark Cub over the Benchmade Bug Out. And this guy's made in Taiwan, not China, Taiwan. But a few different blade shapes, including the slicer, the drop point, and I think the shark's foot. I like the slicer the best. You can get these in, like I said, injection mold plastic and AUS 10A for about, is it 90? Yeah, that's right, 90. And then there's some G10 and S35VN variations, some aluminum, and I think this is 20 CV, is it? Almost certainly 20 CV. Does it actually say on there? I don't think so. Oh yeah, it does. It's just upside down. Sorry, I was like trying. CBM 20 CV. I think these are about 200, maybe 250. And then there's also some titanium variations. Actually, I think these are 200 titanium variations in 20 CV and titanium for 250. This is an exceptional pocket knife. The only downside is after multiple flicks in and out. This right here, this little tab, it gets a little bit sharp and it's going to bother your fingers a little bit. But getting a knife out to use, right, to just deploy it and then use it for what you're going to use it for and then putting it away shouldn't be a problem. The pocket clip's pretty good. Not my favorite pocket clip in the world, but it is good. I didn't find the need to change anything about this knife. I thought it was essentially perfect. It is legitimately one of the best EDC options on the market. I love it. It's going to take something pretty serious to kick this thing out of my #1 spot, personally. And by the way, you're like, why is this not #1 on the list? Because the list is not in any particular order. Moving on to #2, the only knife on the list that I don't own and should definitely own again because it is one of Cold Steel's greatest products ever. And that's the Cold Steel American Lawman. Despite not being made in America, it is made in Taiwan, which is a fact that always shocks people. But the American Lawman is legitimately one of the best EDC knives that Cold Steel has ever made. They used to make these in CTS XHP, but they are now in S35EN, which is fine. The ergonomic lock-in with this knife is phenomenal. The cutting geometry on this knife is phenomenal. The G10 is pretty aggressive, but it makes for a great outdoor work knife that where grip is super important. It's lightweight, it's fairly thin, and it is extremely strong. It didn't need big, burly, thick materials to be a hardcore outdoor work knife. Now, I'm not suggesting you take the tip of this knife and hammer it into something or pry with it or screw with it because it is a tip of steel that is thin on purpose so that it can be good at puncturing. So you take the knife's ability to puncture away when you use it for stuff like that. If you use this as a knife, it can definitely handle some more hardcore tasks than a lot of other knives, it can definitely handle a lot of other hardcore tasks that a lot of other knives cannot handle, for sure. So if you know that you're going to be slightly, not insanely, but slightly abusive with your pocket knife, I would say, definitely the American Lawman, the Code 4, those are going to stand up a lot better just in terms of their locking systems and, the geometry out of the tip, I think is pretty darn good. But yeah, straightforward pocket knife, S35VN, G10, and the Triad lock, which is really important, for about $130. I think it's about $129. Again, you can find these periodically on Amazon for less, but it is a bit of a dice roll. You might get one that's totally fine, or you might get one that's a little bit screwed up. That's just what you do, what happens with Amazon, right? So I'll link both. You guys can check them out if you want. But yeah, highly recommendable knife, something that I think everybody should try. I do have a friend that I gave this knife to, I think years ago, and it is still to this day his only pocket knife. Very cool. And then finally, at the final spot here, not necessarily the ultimate spot, not necessarily the #1 knife. For those of you who are like, listen, I want a durable knife, but I also want a big burly knife. I want that complete package, but I still want it to be something that I can carry. The #1 knife that I recommend to those people, in fact, I have a ton of friends who I know for sure will abuse their knife no matter how much I warn them against it. The only knife that I recommend to those people, that will actually go in a pocket and not be too cumbersome to carry, is the Cold Steel and Demko AD10. Why? Because it is exactly that. This is essentially the everything knife, and it is one of those knives that if somebody said, I know it doesn't make sense to recommend a folding knife for the apocalypse, but if you were going to, what would it be? The 8010, right? I mean, yeah, you can do the 4 Max and the big. The problem with those is that they're so big, it's like, haha, fun, until you're like, this is kind of not fun to carry around. The Demko 8010 is big, but it's just compact enough that I could stand to carry this. If this was my only knife, right, and I was wearing work pants or jeans every day, yeah, I could do it. This has much more heavy-duty geometry out of the tip. So for those of you who are like, I'm going to abuse my knife regardless of what you say. Definitely. Like this over everything else on the list, right? It still has a reasonable cutting edge out here, not too thick. The steel on the more premium one is S35VN, while the standard one, I believe, is AUS10A and plastic. There is an 8010 light, right, which is fine if you don't care about the premium steel and you don't care about the G10. You know, this titanium scale actually comes from original goat. But there is I think there is a factory 8010 titanium from Cold Steel. You don't need that. The G10 is just fine. This has the triad lock and it has a super burly version of it. This thing feels like a powerhouse. It is very ergonomic. It is awesome to work with. It's definitely a knife that can take quite a bit more abuse than your average pocket knife without being stupidly cumbersome, right? It's going to weigh a lot less than this titanium version if you go with G10 or the injectable plastic. The only thing that sucks about it is the stupid pocket clip that it comes. What were they thinking? The pocket clip it comes with is ridiculous. Like, literally any other shape of object attached to this knife would work better. Could have been a metal pine cone with a screw that attached it. Would have been better. I immediately bought a different clip from Etsy. I cannot remember where this came from, but this has been fine. There's still a ton of aftermarket clips out there, so that is a bummer. I am going to recommend that people replace the clip immediately, but you are going to have options for it, left and right hand carry. There should be plenty of mountable pocket clips for left hand, which is great because it's an ambidextrous locking system. This is a knife that I really feel like I took it out and I was abusive with it. I was, I didn't really care about it. I was just kind of pounding it into the dirt. It will probably survive. These things are made incredibly tough, and it's one of my favorite truly capable knives out there. And it's not horrifically expensive. Depending on where you look, these knives can be found as cheap for the light version as about $60, and as expensive as about $160 for the G10 and S35VN, and then a little bit more if you go with the, actually I think a lot more if you go with the titanium. But if you are that type of person, this is the knife that I would recommend you check out. But I still recommend everybody check it out, because even if you're not a big burly knife person, this might do it for you. I hand this to people and they go, oh, that's a knife. The 8010 is truly, truly awesome. Wish they made this with the shark lock. Wouldn't that be awesome? Super cool. But anyways, didn't intend for that to turn into a half-hour video, but it did. There's a lot to talk about here. Hopefully, some of you found something that you're willing to try. Like I said, everything will be linked down in the description so that you can check it out. Let me know if you own these knives already or if you plan to check any of them out. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.